Yucca Flat, Nevada, May 19, 1953. At 5:05 a.m., one of a series of nuclear tests under the umbrella codenamed Upshot Knothole is set off. Within seconds of the blast, a disc-shaped object is seen rapidly descending from the sky, headed south toward Las Vegas, then disappearing into the mountains. Just 2 days after this event, government officials secretly gathered a team of scientists for a curious assignment. They were to investigate the crash of an unidentified flying object on the outskirts of Kingman, Arizona, a city 175 miles south of the nuclear test site. There were 40 engineers that boarded a bus, and they took a long 3.5-hour ride from Phoenix to Kingman. When they got there, it was nighttime. There were MPs on all corners of the craft. It's about a 40-foot diameter dish-shaped craft that was perfectly intact. There wasn't a scratch on it. There were 4 beings associated with this craft, and they shipped it to Groom Lake. Groom Lake is the Area 51 region in Nevada. When Area 51 was just bare bones, they took the craft and the aliens out to that location in the middle of the Nevada desert because it was so remote. And around that, they built Area 51. Hidden within a ring of mountains deep in the Nevada desert, Area 51 is a top-secret military installation that has long been rumored to hold evidence of alien technology. And there are even stories that a special facility at Area 51 once held a survivor of the 1953 Kingman UFO crash, an alien entity known as J-Rod. J-Rod is an alien who allegedly worked at Area 51 over a period of years, and it was J-Rod's mission or duty to help reverse engineer technology that was apparently from the 1953 Kingman UFO crash. J-Rod was one of the crash survivors and worked directly with our own government. Captain Bill Uhouse, a former Navy pilot who later worked for the U.S. Air Force performing experimental testing on aircraft, was assigned to Area 51 in the mid-1960s. And he claims that he not only studied the craft that allegedly crashed in Kingman, Arizona, but also had direct contact with J-Rod. We had a long period of introduction into meetings, in the area. And I call him J-Rod. That's the name that the linguists gave. And he would talk, but he sounds just like, if you spoke, he'd sound like you. He's like one of these, a parrot. But he'd try and answer your question, Basically, it was only engineering advice or science advice. There's also another whistleblower by the name of Dan Burish. And Dan Burish said that he was hired as a microbiologist to basically care for J-Rod, ensuring that he remained healthy. And this went on for years and years and years. According to Dan Burish and Bill Uhouse, J-Rod was housed in a special underground chamber at Area 51. And there have been numerous other accounts of extraterrestrials working with the United States government. There's a lot of stories that we worked with the aliens at Area 51, or some say at a base nearby, kind of in the desert out there. And we've been working with them in underground labs, and they have been sharing information for us to enhance our technologies. Is it possible that the United States government has met with and worked with entities like J-Rod and other alien visitors since at least the 1950s? According to UFO researchers, there is evidence that extraterrestrials have not only been held at secret military bases, but have even met face-to-face with the commander-in-chief inside the walls of the Pentagon. One of the most detailed accounts of a presidential close encounter is the story of an otherworldly visitor named Valiant Thor. The story of Valiant Thor comes from a gentleman by the name of Frank Stranges, who's a chaplain and apparently held a top secret clearance. As the story goes, in 1957, a UFO landed in Virginia, very close to Washington, D.C. Police officers were called to the scene, and out stepped a human-looking gentleman who wanted to visit with then President Eisenhower. He was taken directly to the Pentagon and was able to arrange a meeting with President Eisenhower. In this meeting, he basically stated that he was very much concerned about our use of nuclear weapons. Just as another country would host an ambassador to the United States, the theory was that Valiant Thor was the ambassador from the extraterrestrials, and he was from time to time advising President Eisenhower and the US government on policy issues. This idea that an actual physical extraterrestrial visitor could potentially be influencing the course of the world is a possibility. I am sure there's envoys out there that do the same thing, not just on a planet, but in entire planetary systems. Burbank, California, June 1943. In the midst of World War II, the government presses the Lockheed Aircraft Corporation to develop the next generation of military planes. Jet fighters designed to outflank propeller aircraft and help turn the tide of war. A team headed by Lockheed engineer Clarence Kelly Johnson delivers the first production model in just 143 days. Their P-80 Shooting Star initiates the jet age for the U.S. military. Kelly Johnson's secret research and development team ultimately becomes known as Skunk Works. Clarence Kelly Johnson was the first head of Lockheed's Skunk Works division back in the 50s and 60s up until 1975. He is the developer of the U-2 spy plane, which was able to fly at the incredible altitude at 80,000 feet, equipped with photographic capabilities that were astonishing. And he is a great legend in the aviation community, for sure. Despite his mainstream credentials, Johnson becomes the primary witness to a now famous UFO sighting in Agoura, California, on December 16, 1953. His report of the encounter and his personal sketches of the craft were preserved by Project Blue Book, the U.S. government's official account of the UFO phenomenon at the time. He was with some of his colleagues at the time when he saw a very, very unusual object that he could not explain in any kind of technology that was familiar to him at the time. During an era of official skepticism about UFOs, Johnson risks his career by reporting the sighting to his superiors. But instead of being penalized or demoted, Johnson is seemingly rewarded 2 years later when he plays a pivotal role in founding America's most secret military base, Area 51. Kelly Johnson was the person that identified the location where Area 51 is as a good strategic location. It is fundamentally located in the right part of the world without prying eyes. What was Area 51 founded merely to test experimental aircraft, as the military insists? Or did Kelly Johnson choose the location as the best place to reverse engineer the very alien spacecraft he believed he saw with his own eyes? Rachel, Nevada, March 17, 2018. Just outside the perimeter of Area 51, Giorgio Tsoukalos meets with researcher Wolf McLaren and mining expert Christian Grinnell. They are here to investigate rumors of an alleged tunnel network that lies beneath Area 51. This is amazing, isn't it? Wolf and Christian believe this location, the Tempute Mine, is one of several old Nevada mines that have been used to expand operations at Area 51, deep underground. I'm a miner about 100 miles north of Area 51 here, and I've been mining there since 1992. I also own a mine in Goldfield, so I'm just an added miner, I search these out. So what can you tell us about Area 51? Area 51, what you see like on Google imagery, that was the 50s, 60s, and 70s. Since then, they've gone down. Everything they do is underground. And what evidence have you come across as a miner that would corroborate your idea? People are questioning, well, if they're going down, where's all the dirt going? Well, it's going to these nearby mines. And they're putting it in huge mountains and they're heap leaching it. By the time they're done heap leaching a huge mountain, it goes down to nothing. Now, to the uninitiated, what does heap leaching mean? It is they pile the ore up into a large mountain, hundreds of feet high, and they run hoses all the way through it, like every 2 feet, and they leach in mercury and cyanide. And what that does, it'll take boulders this large and actually just bring them down to nothing. Real, yeah. Is the government using heap leaching inside the Tempute mine in order to hide the massive amounts of dirt being removed in the course of their digging operations? But if so, how is the government able to conduct such an enormous operation without arousing the suspicion of the local miners? These mines around here have the gold, silver, lead, so any mine would be more than happy to accept the ore. And it's kind of like hush-up money. I've witnessed this hush-up and dealt with this a lot. Hush-up of what? Hush-up of the base. The tunnels of Area 51. Okay. It's sort of self-explanatory that the reason why people would go underground is if there are experiments going on, that there is no interference or less interference. Exactly, yeah. Has the US military been expanding its operations at Area 51, not outward, but downward, in order to keep its top secret work even more secret than before? It is my own belief, based on a lot of good research, that there is most likely a large, I would even say vast, web of interconnected underground bases and tunnels that exist. They originally started doing it, by the way, just to protect against an atomic strike that could have happened from the Soviet Union, and you need secure underground facilities. Well, they took that and just ran with it. There are those that believe that the underground operations being conducted at Area 51 are only the tip of an enormous iceberg. Is it just one of many secret government facilities, each connected to each other by a vast network of underground high-speed trains? And underground train system is said to be centered around Cheyenne Mountain in Colorado Springs. This is a mountain that has been hollowed out by the US military. It's the NORAD Central Command. And they go from Cheyenne Mountain in Colorado Springs to Dulce, New Mexico, which is said to have an extraterrestrial underground base. Then it goes to Los Alamos in New Mexico, then to Albuquerque and to Roswell, and to Area 51 in Nevada. All of these military bases are essentially connected by a secret underground subway system. The Air Force Base, 1967. U.S. Air Force Captain David Freehoff joins an elite group of pilots flying America's most sophisticated spy plane, the SR-71. I was an SR-71 pilot for 4.5 years. The aircraft, as far as performance went, it was an hour from coast to coast. It would warp your mind with that kind of performance. And you just felt so proud that you had an opportunity to fly that airplane. And to be a part of that unit and those people, it was family. No one is surprised when the military assigns such an elite pilot to duties at America's most top secret Air Force base. I worked at Area 51 for 6 years from 1979 to 1985. You had to have a special clearance, a top secret SBI, special background investigation. Fortunately, I had gotten that while I was flying the SR. So it was an easy transition for me to move from the SR 71 and my clearances and all over into Area 51. Along with his colleagues, Freehoff commuted each day from McCarran Airport in Las Vegas to Area 51 using a mysterious government carrier named Janet Airlines. One of the great stories about Area 51 comes from engineer T.D. Barnes. Here's what he said. If there are UFOs being reverse engineered at this base, I wouldn't know about it because you flew out in an airline, Janet Airlines, and the windows were blacked out, so you didn't know where you were going. Freehoff noticed that on his daily commutes, a select group of scientists and military personnel also boarded the Janet 737 in Las Vegas. When the plane landed at Area 51, this group boarded a bus and headed to an even more secretive facility codenamed Site 4, or S4. When I was there, we knew about S4, but we didn't know what they did. All we knew is there were certain people that got on the 737 in the morning, and we got to Area 51. They would take and go off in a different direction in the bus, and then we went on to the north, going up towards the hangars. Freehoff never knew exactly what was going on at Site 4 during his time at Area 51. But when he heard Bob Lazar's story years later, he found that Lazar's description of flying to Area 51 on a Janet 737 and traveling to S4 rang true in every detail. When I heard Bob Lazar describe getting on the 737, fly to Area 51 and get off and go through the terminal and go to S4, and everything he talked about and the way he put it, he sounded totally believable to me. Critics contend that no actual eyewitnesses have ever come forward to confirm that Lazar worked at Area 51, much less at Site 4. But Freehoff claims otherwise. I know people that had worked for me that after I left there, they had seen Bob Lazar there, and they admitted that to me recently. I know that his critics piled on because obviously they did not want the word to come out that there were, in fact, UFOs in our possession, and that he was revealing a capability to perhaps our enemies that we, in fact, had alien technologies